Hello guys, in this class we'll be learning about JavaScript object notation, also called as JSON. Now let me tell you, JSON is a very important part. Why? Because JSON is actually used to send data from the client to the server and from the server to the client, right? So it is an integral part of actually doing the client server architecture, right? So let us study what exactly is JavaScript object notation, and we'll see examples also about how we are gonna code and what is the syntax of JavaScript. Right, so JSON is a lightweight format for storing and transporting data, right? So there are different kinds of data available to send from client to server, from server to client. But what is a JSON? Now, JSON is a lightweight format. That means, for example, it is not a complex programming, or it is not a complex way of storing or transporting the data. It is a very simple way of transporting and storing the data, right? So JSON is often used when data is sent from a server to web page. So that's what I told you just now, that it can be sent from the client to the server as well as from the server to the web page, right? So commonly used APIs and configs. Now JSON is actually commonly used in APIs and configs. Now we'll discuss about APIs in the later stage, right? So these are few advantages that it is used for APIs and configs. It is very easy to write, easy to read as well, right? It is it integrates easily with most languages. JSON is actually based on the subset of JavaScript, right? So that is why the name JavaScript object notation. It consists of objects, right? It is notated in the form of a JavaScript object. So that is why it is called as JavaScript object notation. It is very easy to write and read as well. Now it is oftenly used with AJAX. Now AJAX means asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Now XML requests are quite different. It is usually like HTML, but the syntax and all those things are a little bit different in XML. So it is usually often used with AJAX. Now AJAX are dynamic web pages created, right? So AJAX is the format of that. Now usually AJAX is used in a website where we need not to refresh the page. Automatically the page is refreshed and shows the new values. Whatever we want to give scripting, automatically it refreshes, and that is why we use asynchronous JavaScript and XML. They are also called as AJAX. Now can be also used with most languages, just like I have mentioned here, right? So let us see what data types does JSON have. Now JSON has the 6 data types available. The first data type is the strings data type, right? I have given an example. If you want to use a string, it should always be quoted with double quotes, right? So that is the strings. And next comes the numbers. You can see 1 2 3 4 5 6. You can give any numbers over there, right? So next comes is boolean. Boolean value contains of two values, that is true or false, or 0 or 1, right? So that's null. Null means empty value. That means it does not contain any value. Next comes the arrays. We have already looked at it in the previous JavaScript classes, but right now we are gonna, these are all basic examples of JSON data types. Now array is a collection of elements of the same type. You can see hello, everyone, all these are string types, right? So object is nothing but a key value pair. Now key, a particular property will be given. Key is also called as a property. A particular property will be given. For a particular property, a value will be assigned to it. For example, name is equal to my name, age is equal to 20, 21, 22. All those things would be there, right? Now we're going to go to our code editor and see some examples of exactly how we can use JavaScript object notation, and also what is the difference between a normal object and JavaScript object notation, right? So let us go to our code editor here. Before starting our program, let me tell you, just like how we have .js file, that is a JavaScript file, .css for CSS file, .html for HTML file, just like that even JSON has its own extension, that is .json, right? So today we are not going to use about .json. We are going to include the JSON format in our HTML file. So what we are going to do is we are going to create as JavaScript example JavaScript, or we can create as json.html. So I created a new file here. So let me go back and add the structure, right? So let me save it first. And after that I'm going to add the structure here. So I've added the structure of the HTML now. So now I'm going to use the object. Now to use the object, what I can do, I can use the normal JavaScript object. I'm going to create a normal JavaScript object. So here I'm going to add a script tag here. After adding a script tag, I'm going to include variable. I'm going to create a object called person, right? So this should be flower brackets, not the square brackets. Remove the square brackets, it is the flower brackets. So right, so after that, what I'm going to use is I'm going to create some key value pairs. Now to create key value pairs, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use name of my name. I'm going to give my name, then after that comma, I'm going to give my age. I'm going to give it as 23. Again, that simple. Now save it. Now I want to see the output of that, so I'll go to the browser and see the output. Just go here, open with live server. You can see there's nothing available. Why? Because we have not given any commands to display it, right? So to display that, what I'm going to use is I'm going to go back to my code editor. Here I'm going to use console to display. So let me open the console first. Yeah, just close this, just refresh it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this, so you can see the output what I'm going to do here. So what I'm going to use here is I'm going to use console dot, let me just increase this so you can see that properly. Yes, right? So here what I'm going to use, I'm going to use console.log of, I'm going to use the object name, so that is person. So just refresh, save it. You can see entire, just remove all of these things. These are, don't worry about this one because we are not going to use JSON right now. This is just the JavaScript object, right? So we are not using JSON. So let me tell you, that is why you are getting this JSON error. So don't worry about it. Just ignore the errors. So if you want to ignore the errors, you can just go to if you want to just ignore the errors, just remove all of these things, so you won't get any errors or warnings, right? So right now, let's not use the JSON, right? Now here, don't click on this info, don't untick it. Why? Because if you untick it, the whole information will be gone off. So that is why you have to use info here, so to see the outputs of this, right? So I've used console.log of person, so I'm getting this output here, right? So this is the JavaScript object. But is it a JavaScript object notation? Is it a valid JSON? This is just an object in a JavaScript, but is it a valid JSON? To check if it is a valid JSON, what we can do, we can just go to this website called JSON lint, right? So that is the JSON validator. Now if you go there, you can see, you can type in the code whatever here it is. So once you type the code, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just copy this code, copy this and just paste it here, right? So I've pasted the JavaScript object here. Now I'm just going to go here, right? So I am here, you can see there's something called validate JSON. I'll just bring back this. Yeah, there's something called validate JSON, right? So if I click on validate JSON, you can see the error, parse error on line 1 where person, there's some error here, right? So why? Because JavaScript object is not a JSON format. Remember this, JavaScript object is an object. It is not a JSON format. To make sure it is a JavaScript object notation, you just have to add double quotes for this, for all the properties which you have here. So once you add the properties here, then click on validate. Let me remove this first. What I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the age. I'm going to do semicolon here. I'm going to remove this comma here. Now I'm going to click on valid JSON. Remember, you should not put this as well. You should remove this first, then you can add all of these things. So you don't have to put this here. You just have to put the opening bracket and then you can give your property value. I'm going to put comma, then again for the age I'm going to give this again for 23. Now click on valid JSON, it says valid JSON, right? So if I remove this, you can see the output now, it says error. So I have to put this comma. So this is exactly the valid JSON format. So here if I go back and see the output once again, see this is how you get the output. But what happens if you go back and add this? Let me go back and add this as well. So let's see, I'm gonna add the JSON, exact JSON format here. right? So I've added this JSON format. Again, I'm going to control save. You can see again it works the same way, right? So in your code editor, if you are using under the script tag, right, if you can work without the double quotes and you can work with the double quotes. But when you are using JSON, right, particularly if you use JSON, what happens is you cannot get the output. Now this is a valid JSON, but if I remove this quote and if I check here, you can see there's an error. So that means this is not a valid JSON. So if we want to make it valid JSON, you have to add a quote here so that it says valid JSON. Now you can add one more property here, that is email. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put an email function here. So for that I can add email of, I'm going to add a function now. Function, there's no return value, so I'm going to just close this, open this now. Now function of, I'm going to put return, I'm going to put my email. So that is, I'm going to put my email, right? So once I put my email, semicolon after the function. So after this, close all of these things, just close this. Now go back here and control save it. I've added one more brackets here. I'll remove that first. Now you can see that it is proper. If I control save, you can see the output email of function, right? You can see the function here. So once I go to the function, you can see name email, right? So all those things can be done using this. But if I go back and add this in the JSON, let me go back, copy this and JSON lint. I'm going to add after this comma, I'm going to add a function now, right? So after adding this function, let us see if this is a valid JSON. Now you can see it is not a valid JSON. Why? Because it is not a valid JSON. Why? Because you cannot use a function in a JSON, right? If you just want to display the output of the email, what you can do is you can just go to this and you can click dot email, right? You can click on dot email and call that function. Now when you go and control save, you can see only my email will be displayed. Correct? Only my mail is displayed. Now if I have one more function, maybe I want to add one more function, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add this, and again I'm going to add college. So I have added college here. So college of, I'm going to create one more function here. Function, there's no argument passed. So function, what I'm going to use, I'm going to use return of, I'm going to use PES. So now I'm going to just close it, right? It requires one more brackets. You can see now what I have given college here. I have used return PES, closed it. Remember, if you are giving one more key value pair, so you have to put this semicolon after this, right? Just like how you did semicolon here, after this function also you have to put this semicolon, right? At the last it is not required, only after each property value pair. So once you do this, you just refresh it, you can see my college name here, right? So if I want to add one more function, let me do one more function. I'm just going to add semicolon. After that I'm going to put workplace. Here workplace, what I'm going to use, workplace of, I'm going to use a function once again. Here I'm going to put return, I'm going to put TechWord Labs. Now close it, save it. Here I'm going to use the function name, that is workplace. Now if I control save it, you can see my workplace here, that is TechWord Labs, right? So this is how you can use functions in a normal JavaScript object. But if you are using it in a JSON, now what I'll do is I'll just copy this first, copy this, and after this what I'm going to do, I'm going to just close this and add a semicolon, paste it. Now if you validate it, it is not a valid JSON, right? So I hope you understood the difference between a JavaScript object and also JavaScript object notation, right? In object notation you cannot add functions, but in JavaScript object you can add functions. Now we are going to learn about how to use JavaScript object notation in the script tag, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just remove all of these things. I don't want the functions here, so I'll just use only this, right? I'll just use only this. Now what I'm going to use, now there's a something function called as json.stringify. It stringifies the data. That means it's, for example, I'll show you. If I don't use this, let me see the output of this first so that it will be better. Now if I save this output, you can see it is in a object format. So I don't want this object format, I want it in a string format. To use this in a string format, here what I'm going to use, I'm going to put the variable name equals json dot stringify. There's something called json dot stringify. I'm going to give the variable name once again. So here just put semicolon. Now go, anyhow console.log is already there, just control save. You can see it is in a string format here, right? So if you want the object to be in a string format, you can use this command called json.stringify. You can see the difference here, right? Now what I can use is, now if you want to get the element particularly of the first one, you can just click here, just dot name, and you can see there will be an output called undefined. You can see there's an output called undefined. Now why? Because we have already stringified it, we have to get it back to the normal version, that is the object version. This is used only to retrieve the object, right? This is not used to retrieve the string. The dot operator is used to retrieve the object. So that is why we have to get it back to the normal form. To get it back to the normal form, what you can use, I will use the same person. I'm going to use something called json dot parse. Now it parses, now parse of person. So now what I'm going to use, if I put the same here dot name, you can see the output now, right? Let me give the proper name here, that is person, right? Now if I go and check, it is my name, right? So it is come back to the object. Now I will just remove this for some time. I'll just comment this off. Now control save, there's nothing, correct? Why? Because we cannot use parse if we don't use stringify. So just again I'll just comment this. Now go and refresh, you can see person.name, right? If you don't use these two parameters also, you can just get the data of the object. But if you use stringify, you can see it is undefined. But if you use the parse again, it is back to the object mode, right? So now person, you can see the entire object mode here. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add one more property value here. So here what I'm going to use, I'm going to use comma, I'm going to use address. So address, I'm going to put again, use this address, I'm going to put street first. What is the street? I'm going to put it as first main road. Okay. So after that again, I'm going to use comma, again city. City is Bangalore, right? So I've given the address of it now. So after this, what I can use, I'll just comment this two things. I don't require it right now. I just comment this. So here what I'm going to use, I'm going to use person to retrieve the data of the address, person dot address. Okay. And now if I go click on control save, you can see the whole address is appearing here as an object, but I don't want an object. So what I'm going to use, I'm going to use address again dot, I'm going to put the street now. So the street will be displayed. You can see the street is displayed now, correct? If I don't want street, I want the city. If I click on city, now you can see a city is displayed, that is Bangalore, right? I hope you guys understood how exactly we can use console.log of person if you are using the address here, right? So likewise, you can use an array also here. To use an array, what I can use, I'll just put comma over here. Again, I'm going to put an array of, I can use cities again. I'm going to use arrays of cities, again colon. To use an array, you have to put a square bracket, right? If you want to use an array. So now I'm going to put an array of again Bangalore, comma, I'm going to put Mumbai. Okay. Now there are two array elements. Now control save. Now I want the array to be displayed. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this. I'm going to add cities off, because this is an array. We can use this. 0 element is the first element, right? It starts on 0. Now control save. Again, you can see the Bangalore output is available here, right? If I want first one, that is one, that is the Mumbai. If I want Mumbai, this is 0 and this is 1. This is the Mumbai now. I'll just click control save. You can see Mumbai will be appeared here, right? So this is how you can use the array in object, right? So, but if you want to use this, just check if it is a proper JSON. So here I'm going to remove the function. Okay, I'm going to just add this validate JSON. It is a valid JSON. Why? Because in my PPT I told you already that arrays can be used. I never told you that functions can be used, and arrays can be used, strings can be used, numbers can be used, and also if you want you can add maybe something called bool of true. Valid, it is a valid JSON. Why? Because boolean values is also valid in JSON, right? So even here also you can use your boolean values. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just go back to this. I'm going to remove all of this first. Let me remove all of this first. So now let me create different names, right? So let me create variable called people equals, I'm going to create different names now. So how to create different names? You can just add, let me do this properly, people. Okay, now I'm going to create an array of people. So to create an array of people you can use the square bracket. After this you can use this. Again I'm going to use name of, okay, name of, maybe I'm going to give my name, right? So comma, I'm going to give the age as well, 23. Again after this, again I can use comma here, again I can open this, right? So again I'm going to give my friend's name as Manoj, right? So again I'm going to use comma, again I'm going to use age of 24, right? So after this it is done. So the array is completed here. After the completion of array you can add semicolon. Now there are two values in this array. I want to get the output of this. Now to get the output I can use console.log of person dot, right? Sorry, let me do one thing. I'm just gonna remove this first. Okay, people. Okay, this is people, right? So people equals, now I have created an array. This is not people now, this is not person now, it is people. Now people of, because this is an array I can use this. Okay, so of, let me close this. Now what should I get as an output? I have to get the output of this. Now name and age, I've got this name and age, correct? So this is how we can use an object, but I don't want the entire object to be displayed. I just want the age of that person. To get the age of that person or name of that person, just add dot name and control save, we can see the name. Again if I want to add age, just go here, control save, you can see the age of that person. Now if I just go and add 0, that is the first element, just control save, you can see my age as well, right? So this is how you can use control. And one more, you can use for loop here also. Now how to use a for loop? Just do one thing. Here you can add something called for of variable. I'm going to initialize a variable called I, variable equals 0. I can initialize to 1, 2 or anything, less than length, that is people dot length, right? People dot length, right? People dot length, again close it. Length is already command already exists in JavaScript, right? So it is there, you don't have to externally do it. I++ means it increments. I want the browser, I want the console to print the values inside an array. So to use that I can use this. Now after that I can open the brackets here. Inside this bracket I can put this now. So here what I'm going to remove all of this. I don't want this first. Now I want entire things to be printed. Control save, you can see both the things are printed here, right? All the things are printed, correct? So you can use that as well. If you want only the name to be printed, just add I here. After that I'm going to add name, that's it. I is I because you have already declared a variable called I here, right? So that is why you can use I here. Now control save, you can see both the names are appeared here. If I want the age, just go back, age, control save, you can see both the ages will be here. Likewise you can add n number of values, right? If I want this to be printed on my website, we see I am using the console.log here, but if I want it to be printed on my website, what I can use, I can just comment this. Let me don't use this, I commented it. Now inside this for loop itself you can include a variable called output equals, I'm going to create a list now, right? I'm going to create a list. To create a list, let me add a list here, that is list tag. So after adding a list tag I'm going to use plus. Plus is used to add, right? So add the variables inside that. Here also you have to include a plus. Remember, you have to include a plus here, right? So output plus equals, I'm going to create a list. and after that I'm gonna this quote should be here, plus people means add that people of, I'm going to use the I, that is the first, I'm going to print the names of the objects. So here also I have to include plus means it adds the next variable or element which is there. Now that means I'm going to put a list again here, correct? Again I'm going to put semicolon, and after that I'm going to close the for loop. I've already closed it. Now here I'm going to put document dot get element by ID. Now we have not declared an ID here, right? So before that, if you want to declare an ID, you can create a variable or you can create a paragraph. Don't put anything, just add an ID here, right? ID equals demo or something. So you can add here, right? So you can add that and you can give a space, control save. There's nothing available because we have not printed anything. So document.getElement by ID of, I'm going to use people, right? So people is our object name. So people dot inner HTML. I've already explained you about inner HTML. Inner HTML is equal to, what is the output? Output, you can give it as output. Let me go here and give it as output, right? So once I do this, semicolon, let me go control save, right? Before that, you have to create a variable for output as well, because we have not declared the variable, we have just defined it, right? So you have to create a variable here. So let me create it here. Variable output equals, I'm going to give nothing, so semicolon, control save. Why aren't we getting any output? Because we have not created an ID called people here, right? So we have to create an ID. I will put unordered list first. So unordered list of ID is equal to people, right? So just close this again, just close this. Now if I go back and this demo, I'm just changing it to people here, right? So control save, you can see the output of my name, right? My name and my friend's name. Why? Because this ID, I had created a paragraph, but I have removed that paragraph and I've added an ordered list, because this should be an ordered list. Unordered list. If I add an ordered list here, just see the output now. You can see our ordered list will be appeared here, right? So you can first, you have to declare an ID. Later, you can use this command to display all the names. If I want only age, what I can do, I just can go here and add age, remove the name, add age. Simple. That is how you can use JavaScript, right? So if you want, you can save this entire thing in a separate JSON file. For example, if you go here, click on one.json. Here, if you want, you can just copy this and you can paste it as well. Let us check if it is valid JSON. It is not a valid JSON. Why? Because I've not given quotes here. So let me put quotes first. Okay. So now it is a valid JSON. Let us check if it is a valid JSON. Let's copy this first. Go back, remove this, paste it. It's not a valid JSON, right? So what is the problem? Let us check what is the problem. Just remove this and check. It is a valid JSON, right? You don't have to put semicolon here. But when you are using inside a HTML file, you will have to actually put the semicolon over there, right? So I hope you guys understood what is the difference between a JavaScript normal object and JSON. Now this is a valid JSON. If you can go to this website called JsonLint.com to validate your JSON files. So that was about JSON data types, and we saw an example of how exactly we could perform all the operations, right? So we can save it in either .json file, or if we want to include it in a HTML file, that is also possible, right? So now we're going to move to the next topic, that is application programming interface. Now what is an API? It is also called as API. Now what is this exactly? Now application programming interface is a set of routines, protocols and tools for building software applications. Now basically a API specifies how software components should interact. Additionally, APIs are used when programming graphical interfaces are there. Now, what exactly is an API? There are a few examples called Google Maps APIs, YouTube APIs, Twitter APIs, right? So there are so many APIs available in the world right now. But let us understand what exactly is a API. Now, API is nothing but, for example, if you have gone to a restaurant and you have sat on a table. Now, there's a menu card which is available for you and you want to order it. Now, the kitchen is somewhere else and you are sitting in a table. Now, how do you order? Like, do you just tell them, or what exactly is there? Do you have an intermediary over there now who takes an order from a person and goes to the kitchen and brings back that order? Yes, there is an intermediary that he is called as a waiter or a service guy. Now what happens? You take a menu card, you read all the menu card, whatever you like, you will tell the order to the waiter. Now the waiter will go to the kitchen. Now what happens? He will give the order to the kitchen staff. Now kitchen staff will perform that particular order and execute that. And the waiter will take the order from the kitchen and comes back and delivers your food. Now he acts as an intermediary between a kitchen and a service table or a person like you, right? So that is what is. The waiter is also termed as application programming interface, right? Though this is an API, it is an intermediary for you and some other applications which is available outside in the world. For example, Google, right? If you want to access the maps of the Google, if you want to access YouTube videos, if you want to access geolocations, roads, routes, there should be an intermediary which will actually let you do that. Now this API will actually let you do that, right? So this is an example. You can see an image over here. You can see mobile apps, wearable device, robots, smart home, right? So in all of this, if we want to connect with each other, we must require an intermediary. Now that intermediary is nothing but an API. You can see all of this is connected through an API. Mobile device is connected with an API. This is a mobile app. Smart home is connected to a TV. But to get web applications, to get a car, there's an API which is there. Sensors is available. This acts as an intermediary between all of these things. And that is how the data is being shared. Right, so this is how the data is shared. So there are different types of APIs available. For example, you have open APIs, public APIs, you have partner APIs, you have internal APIs, composite APIs. Now let us study each one by one. Now what is an open API or a public API? Now they are publicly available to the developers and other users with minimal restriction. They may require registrations, use of an API key or authorization, or maybe completely open. It might be completely open or it might be authorized as well. They focus on external users to access data or services. For example, if I want to access a Google map, I should use this open API or called as public API, right? So this is about open or public API. The next thing comes is the partner APIs. Now partner APIs are APIs exposed by or to the strategic business partners. Now they are not available publicly and need specific entitlement to access them. Maybe we have to pay to the domain which is offering the partner APIs. We have to pay them, we have to buy it, we have to purchase it, right? Like open APIs, partner APIs are the tip of the iceberg because they are the most visible ones and are used to communicate beyond the boundaries of the company. They are usually exposed to public API developer portal. There is a portal which is developed called as developer portals. Though their developers can access this partner APIs by paying certain amount or by using free also, right? So the next thing comes internal APIs called as private APIs. Now they are hidden from the external users and only exposed by internal system. They are not accessible by public people. It is only by the internal systems. Internal APIs are not meant for consumption outside the company, but rather for the use across different internal development terms for better productivity and reuse of services. Now just like I told you, public APIs is available for external users, but internal APIs are only available for internal users, for internal development of maybe there is a line of products which has to be completed. For that they can use internal APIs. A good governance process consists of exposing them to an internal API developer portal. Just like you have public developer portal, there will be an internal developer portal inside a company. The last type of API is the composite APIs. Now composite APIs combine multiple data or service APIs. They are built using the API orchestration capabilities of API creation tool. There is a tool called as API creation tool which creates APIs, right? It is a combination of this multiple data and service APIs. Now these are actually useful in many microservices architecture pattern where you need information from several services to perform a single task, right? The data APIs and all those things can be merged together and called as composite APIs. The next thing comes the API protocols. Now what are these protocols? Protocols are nothing but the set of rules and regulations which are applicable to a popular domain, a particular domain, right? So there are three major API protocols which are there. One is called as a REST API. Now REST API stands for Representational State Transfer. Now what is this? This is a web services API. That means it is an online services API. REST APIs are a key part in modern web applications including Netflix, Uber, Amazon and many others. All this Netflix, Uber, Amazon companies, they use REST APIs in their particular programs or in their website to access or gain information from other applications, right? So there are different rules in REST API. That means it is a stateless in nature. That means it is a client server architecture. REST API is a client server architecture. Client will access the data from the server and the server will respond with a response, right? So it is a uniform interface. Cache is there. It is a layered API, should support a layered architecture. So right, these all things are available in the REST API. The next API which comes is the SOAP, that is called as Simple Object Access Protocol. Now it is a well established protocol similar to REST. It is a similar to REST protocol in that it's a type of web API. It's also a type of web API. SOAP has been leveraged from the late 1990s. That means it was created in 1990s and it has been used from that time. SOAP was the first to standardize the way applications should use network connections to manage services. It was the first which standardized the way how applications should connect to each other. But it came with several restrictions, strict rules, rigid standards were too heavy, and some situations were resource intensive. Now resources were not available to actually access SOAP protocol, right? So that is why we used REST APIs in our applications. The next application or the next protocol which comes is the RPC APIs. Now RPC API is a remote procedural call protocol, right? So they are the oldest and the simplest type of APIs. They are the oldest. Now goal of RPC was the client to execute code on a server, right? So that was the goal of an RPC, that is a remote procedural call protocol. Client should be able to execute code on a server. Now XML was also used in RPC, right? There are different types of RPC also. XML RCP is there. JSON RCP is there. Use JSON for encoding. In XML RPC, XML was used to encode, right? So these are all there which are available in the protocol. Now these are the major protocols which we discussed right now. Now let us see how exactly we can use APIs in our programs or in our websites. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new file for me, right? So I'm going to add a file called map123.html, right? So here I'm going to code an API. Now how to actually access. Now we're going to see about how to actually access a Google map. Now we already did a Google map by using the embed code, right? But this time we are not going to do the embed code, but this time we are going to actually go to the developers portal and see how exactly we can take the API permissions from the Google. Now how to do it? Just I'm going to go to developers.google.com, right? So when you go to developers.google.com, right? So when you go to this website, you can see some website here, right? You can see this is the Google developers website. So there are so many options which are available. These are the products. Build anything with Google. You can see Android, Google Cloud, Firebase, Flutter, Google Assistant, Maps platform, TensorFlow, Web. All these are the different products of Google. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to this developer communities. You can see there are so many options, professionals, entrepreneurs, right? So these are the products which are available. Okay, these are the products which are available here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the Maps platform right now. So I have to go to this Maps platform. So when I click on the Maps platform, it will redirect to the Maps API. Now let us see how many APIs are available with Maps. When you come to this Maps section maps platform, you can see so many things are there. That is, maps is there, routes are there, places are there, right? So there's so many things. So let us go to maps right now. So click on the maps, you can see, you can find so many different, you can see the statistics, 99% coverage of the world is there in maps. 1 billion monthly active users are there on map, right? So let me do one thing. I'm going to go to this option called documentation, right? So once you go to this documentation, you can find all the different things which are available. You can see Maps SDK for Android, Maps SDK for iOS, Maps Static API, Maps JavaScript API, right? So let me go to this Maps JavaScript API first, because we're dealing with JavaScript right now. So let me go to this Maps JavaScript API, right? So you can see there are different options which are available here. This you can see there's an overview of this. You can see get an API key. You can see all the tutorials also which are available here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you how to use an API. You can see a code which is already given here. Easiest way to start learning about Map API to see an example. So this is an example of how to create a API for a Google Map. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this entire code, right? So to copy this entire code, you can just use here, go here, right? There's something called copy. Just copy this entire code, go back and paste this entire code first. Now once you paste it, just save it. Once you paste this entire code, you can see there's something called all these things are preloaded. You don't have to do anything. You just have to see the code and properly understand what exactly is that. You can see they have used CSS, right? They have used the ID element here, right? The hash map, height 100%, height 100% here. All these are basic CSS code here. You can see they have created a function that is init map, new map document relevant by ID, that is they have given the latitude here, right? So they have given the latitude as well. Here they have used the script, that is the source of the script is https, that is maps.googleapis.com/maps.api/key is equal to your API key. Now you have to understand one thing here, that is in place of this API key, you will have to put your own API key. To put your own API key, what you have to do, you have to go back to the program, to the website. You can see there's something called get an API key. When you go to this get an API key, you can scroll down, you can see something called, if you want to get an API key, you have to go to this platform. So let us go to this platform first, that is console.cloud.google.com. So once you go to this platform, now once you go to this website, you can find something called overview APIs. You can find the screen exactly. Now let me explain what exactly is this. This is a dashboard of your APIs and all. This is the APIs if you want to create. This is the quotas, right? The Google will offer you a free API key if there is a limited usage. But if there is more than that limited usage, you will have to pay for that API key, right? So first of all, let us create a project. Now to create a project, if you go here, you can see there's something called new project. Just click on this new project and it will be redirected to your project page. Now you can see them 12 or 13 projects will be allotted. I've already created two projects as before. So that is why it says that you have only 10 projects remaining in your quota, right? So if you want to increase, you have to pay. And let me create a project. I'll create a project called maps, right? So there's no organization, or if you can do anything, just create a project. So the project will be created. Now you can see project will be created. Now after the project is created, I'm gonna go here. You can see it's been created, right? So here I'll just click on this project. So here I have not used an API, so all the APIs are available here. All the APIs, you can see different APIs are available. Geolocation APIs, Maps SDK for Android, Roads API, Places API, right? All these things are there. So let me do one thing. I'm just gonna go to this Maps JavaScript API. So here, if I want, I will go and I'll click on this enable button. So that means API will be enabled, right? So it is enabling API here. Once it is enabled, you will get something like this. Now I will have to create an API now. I'll go to this credentials here. You can go to this credentials. Now once you go to this credentials, you can find something called credential in API services, right? Just click on this credential or API. This already been created, and API is already been created. So if you want to create a new API, you just can go to this Once if you are here, you can just create credentials, click on the create credentials, just create a API key here. API key is generated here, right? Just copy this API key. You can see you can restrict that API as well. To restrict that, what you can use this, go here, or if you want to create, just go to all these things. You can see the different things available on the screen. You can just go to overview, or if you want to create, you can just click on the restrict key just where you get it, right? Once you get your API key copied, just go back here. In place of this, your API key, just remove this and add your API key and control save it. Now let us check the output of it. Now to see the output, just go here, open with live server. You can see the map has been displayed on your website, but it is somewhere else. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to search for Bangalore latitude and longitude, and in place of this latitude and longitude, this is a JSON format or this is an object format. You can see center and all those things, right? So here what I'm going to use different latitudes for Bangalore. I'm here, I'm just going to search for Bangalore coordinates. Now if I search for Bangalore coordinates, you can see the Bangalore coordinates. I'll just copy this entire thing over here, that is 12 point. This is the latitude and longitude of Bangalore. So let me go here. In place of this, let me just paste it here first. I'm just gonna remove this. This is the longitude, right? So longitudes, this is the latitude, this is the longitude here, right? So here I'm gonna just remove it, paste it. Now I'm gonna see the output. Since I've used live server, you don't have to reload. Just go back, you can see the Bangalore map is displayed here. You can zoom in, you can zoom out as well. So this is how we can use a API, right? This is Maps API, but this is Maps JavaScript API. If you want some other things as well, you can just go here. If you want different things, you can go to credentials and create. For example, enable API. What do you want? If you want other things, for example, if you want so many things are there. If you want Google API, Gmail API, right? There are different types of APIs which are available already. You can go there and you can take these things there, right? I have created one more API, right? So I'll just show you what exactly I have done here. So I've created this thing called as markers. Now what happens usually is this was just a plain map which is being showed, but what I want here is why are you getting this for development purposes? Because Google will change its terms and conditions regularly. So that is why you are getting this for development purposes. This cannot be used for commercial purposes. That is why, since if you get a premium key, once you pay the amount for the Google, and if you get a premium key, then you don't get this for development purposes, right? Just remember that. Now here I've created something called markers. Now this marker will actually pinpoint a location on my map, right? So I've given this location, that is Bangalore. I've given the Bangalore coordinates, and in Mysore I've given some random coordinates, right? I've given some random coordinates. Now what I'm going to use here is, again, I've returned that marker. The same function is there, but there's few different things. The center, new Google. I've changed the styling also. I've given 640px and 480px. Now this is maps, right? Again, Google APIs is the source. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go and open with live server. You can see the difference. I've created Bangalore. This is because you have to get a premium key, and you can see it is a marker is been highlighted in Bangalore, and one more I've given something, but it is not a Mysore, but I've given some other coordinates. You can see the difference. This is the Bangalore coordinate and this is the different coordinate. But what I'm going to use now, I'm going to change the latitude or longitude and just check what happens. Instead of 77, I'm going to use 70 and control save. Go back. There's nothing here, right? So this happens. If I change it here also, go back and check. You can see it is somewhere in the sea. You can see the difference. It is somewhere here. That is the 70-degree longitude. But if I put 77, it is here, right? You can see the difference. You can see here 70-degree longitude is here. So that is how you can use Google APIs for maps as well. Let me go and check once again for APIs. You can see different APIs. Maps API, machine learning you can use. There's so many different options. Machine learning, maps, mobile, monitoring, networking. If you go on networking, you can see cloud DNS. All these APIs can be used in your programs. But right now, since we are doing maps, we can see all these maps as well. In advertising, analytics, Google provides all of these things, but yes, you have to pay them pay and get an API key. This is the API library which is available, right? So you can see page usage agreements, domain verification, authorization, consent screen, right? So different options available in Google. You can just go through it once and you can check all the options which are available. You can see only available to users within your organization, available to any user with a Google account, right? This is authorization, right? So this is about Google API.